At the end of his 2 terms in office, Ronald Reagan viewed with satisfaction the achievement of his innovative program known as the Reagan Revolution. He felt that he had fulfilled his campaign pledge of 1980 to restore the great, confident roar of American progress, growth, and optimism. On January 20th, 1981, Reagan took office, and only 69 days later, he was shot by would-be assassin John Hinckley, Jr. The way President Reagan went about handling the assassination attempt made his popularity skyrocket.
The late Bill Casey.
I heard a noise, and we came out of the hotel and headed for the limousine, and I heard some noise, and I thought it was firecrackers. And the next thing I knew, one of the Secret Service agents behind me just seized me here by the waist and plunged me headfirst into the limo. I landed on the seat, and the seat divider was down, and then he dived in on top of me, which is part of their procedure to make sure that I'm covered. Well, as it turned out later, the shot that got me caromed off the side of the limousine and hit me while I was diving into the car. And it hit me back here under the arm, and then hit a rib, and that's what caused an extreme pain. And then it turned instead of edgewise and went tumbling down to within an inch of my heart. But when I got in the car, I hadn't felt anything. He landed on top of me, and then the pain, which now I know came from the bullet hitting that rib, that terrific pain. And I said, "Jerry, get off. I think you've broken a rib of mine." And he got off very quickly. And just then I coughed. And I had a handful of bright red, frothy blood. So I said, and I guess evidently the broken rib has pierced the lung. Well, he simply turned and said George Washington Hospital, and we were on our way. But
after the failed assassination attempt, President Reagan took some time off, but it didn't take long for President Reagan to come back and start his journey to restore America. Reagan hoped to restore America was to usher in a new economic ideology. Reagan wanted to instill his idea of trickle-down economics, aka Reaganomics. This would mean that the wealthiest 10% would get tax cuts in the hopes that the wealth would trickle down. Here is a clip from President Reagan's first State of the Union address.
The American people now want us to act, and not in half measures. They demand, and they've earned, a full and comprehensive effort to clean up our economic mess. Because of the extent of our economy's sickness, we know that the cure will not come quickly, and that even with our package, progress will come in inches and feet, not in miles. But to fail to act will delay even longer and more painfully the cure which must come. And that cure begins with the federal budget. And the budgetary actions taken by the Congress over the next few days will determine how we respond to the message of last November 4th. That message was very simple. Our government is too big and it spends too much.
Fixing the economy was only the first step in the Reagan Revolution. What Reagan is probably most known for today is his efforts in the Cold War. Reagan's efforts to end both the Cold War and communism were a staple of his presidency. Here's President Reagan's 1987 speech at the Berlin Wall.
Today I say, as long as this gate is closed, as long as this scar of a wall is permitted to stand, it is not the German question alone that remains open, but the question of freedom for all mankind. In the 1950s, Khrushchev predicted, "We will bury you." But in the West today, we see a free world that has achieved a level of prosperity and well-being unprecedented in all human history. In the communist world, we see failure. There is one sign the Soviets can make that would be unmistakable, that would advance dramatically the cause of freedom and peace. General Secretary Gorbachev If you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
On March 23, 1983, President Reagan proposed the Strategic Defensive Initiative. Because of its outlandish nature, many critics dubbed it the Star Wars Project. Although this project faced rather harsh criticism from the media, it was successful in its own way. When the Soviets received word of this defense initiative, they poured so much money into their military that they ended up spending themselves broke, thus ending the Cold War. While dealing with the struggles of foreign policy, there was also a war happening right here at home. But this war was different. It was about drugs. In 1982, First Lady Nancy Reagan dubbed the phrase, "just say no," when a girl asked her what to do if she had been offered drugs. The campaign caught fire and caught the attention of many different Hollywood stars, the main of them being Clint Eastwood. Here is a public service announcement recorded by Clint Eastwood and Nancy Reagan in the late 80s.
See this cute little vial here? It's crack, rock cocaine, the most addictive form. You think it's the glamour drug of the 80s? Well, that's the point of this friendly little reminder. It can kill you. And if you've got to die for something, this sure as hell ain't it.
In the next few months, the motion picture industry and theater owners will be bringing you a series of messages like the one you just saw. I don't think anybody will miss the point. The thrill can kill. The drug dealers need to know that we want them out of our schools, neighborhoods, and our lives. And the only way to do that is to take the customers away from the product. Say no to drugs and say yes to life.
Of course, your local drug pusher may tell you a little something different about these drugs. And who you believe is up to you. But then again, if you go ahead and try them, at least it won't be out of ignorance. Just stupidity. What would I do if someone offered me these drugs? I'd tell them to take a hike.
First Lady Reagan's campaign was pretty successful, as research done at the University of Michigan shows that drug use among high schoolers dropped from 50% in 1978 to 20% in 1987. This campaign was the real start to the war on drugs, not just in America, but around the world. The Reagan Revolution defined the 1980s. It brought upon the end of the Soviet Union, an economic upstart, and a prosperous America. Here is a clip from President Reagan's farewell address to the nation.
Is that you're always somewhat apart. You spend a lot of time going by too fast in a car someone else is driving and seeing the people through tinted glass, the parents holding up a child and the wave you saw too late and couldn't return. And so many times I wanted to stop and reach out from behind the glass and connect. Well, maybe I can do a little of that tonight. People ask how I feel about leaving, and the fact is, parting is such sweet sorrow. The sweet part is California and the ranch and freedom. The sorrow, the goodbyes, of course, and leaving this beautiful place. You know, down the hall and up the stairs from this office is the part of the White House where the president and his family live. There are a few favorite windows I have up there that I like to stand and look out of early in the morning. The view is over the grounds here to the Washington Monument and then the Mall and the Jefferson Memorial. But on mornings when the humidity is low, you can see past the Jefferson to the river, the Potomac, and the Virginia shore. Someone said that's the view Lincoln had when he saw the smoke rising from the Battle of Bull Run. But I see more prosaic things. The grass on the banks, the morning traffic as people make their way to work, now and then a sailboat on the river. I've been thinking a bit at that window. I've been reflecting on what the past 8 years have meant and mean. And the image that comes to mind like a refrain is a nautical one. A small story about a big ship and a refugee and a sailor. It was back in the early 80s, at the height of the boat people, and the sailor was hard at work on the carrier Midway, which was patrolling the South China Sea. The sailor, like most American servicemen, was young, smart, and fiercely observant. The crew spied on the horizon a leaky little boat, and crammed inside were refugees from Indochina hoping to get to America. The Midway sent a small launch to bring them to the ship in safety. As the refugees made their way through the choppy seas, one spied the sailor on deck and stood up and called out to him. He yelled, "Hello, American sailor. Hello, freedom man." A small moment with a big meaning. A moment the sailor who wrote it in the letter couldn't get out of his mind. And when I saw it, neither could I.
Ronald Reagan was a gentleman and 40th president, opening doors and bringing down walls. No doubters in shipyards or secret labor leagues. A strong America can advance the peace. Liberty will thrive wherever it is planted. Defended liberty wherever it was threatened. Reach heights thought unreachable, enduring symbol of our country's goodness. A big screen smile and a charming demeanor. God bless Ronald Reagan and the country he loved. A man angered by injustice and frightened by nothing. Of Nancy, his beloved, will further his legacy.
Don't survive.